Hi everyone, I'm Sasha from Truly Scrumptious Interiors and So Make Sewing School and Workshops. I've been asked to make up a video tutorial on the making up of rod pockets for Roman blinds. So I thought I'd give this a go. So first of all, you're going to need to work out the calculations for how much fabric, lining fabric you need for your Roman blind. Right, okay, so here you can see in front of me, I've written up a Roman blind lining making up sheet. First of all, you're going to need the finished length and width of your Roman blind. So as you can see here, I've got an example of one that I'm just about to make up. Finished length is 125.5 and the finished width is 103. So in terms of how much fabric, lining fabric, you're going to need for that, you can see here that I've worked out this little calculation sheet, which should be able to help you out. So I'm just going to run through that for those of you that this is completely new to, or find that this is quite a complicated thing. This is a very simple way of making up the lining with the rod pockets on the back. The calculation guide is just very simple. I completely appreciate it that other people might do this a different way, but this is how I teach the ladies on, or the ladies and gentlemen that come along to the Roman blind making classes, a simple way of working out the calculations. So like I said, my finished blind length is going to be 125.5. So as you can see, I've got this little guide here, the fold calculation guides, and this basically works out how many spaces you're going to need for your Roman blind. So as you can see, I've done a little one here. So up to 100 centimeters or a meter is 3.5 folds, or actually should be spaces. Up to 150 is 4.5 spaces, and up to 2 meters is 5.5 spaces. Like I said, this is just a guide. I'm sure there are lots of other people out there that do it completely different, but this is just a real simple way of working it out. So on my Roman blind that I'm about to make up, the finished length is 125.5. So I can go on here and see that because the length is over 1 meter but under 1 centimeter, the fold spaces I'm going to need is 4.5, which means I'm going to get 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces and half at the bottom. So that just basically means I need 4.5 spaces here. So how do you work out then how much fabric you need for that? So I allow 4 centimeters of space for my pocket. So you can see here pockets equal 4 centimeters. That's because my finished pockets, once they're stitched, are going to be 2 centimeters, which will allow for I use eyelets in my machine, in my finished Roman blinds, and I also need to put the plastic rods that I use as well. So it works out that I have a 2 centimeter finished pocket, so I just double that, which is 4 centimeters. So I've just told you that my my finished length is for 125.5. First of all, I need to take off the head rail. Okay, so those of you that aren't sure what I mean by head rail, it's the rail that you attach your Roman blind to. So in most of my Roman blinds, I use these cartridge systems, track systems, which basically you can see that this would have the Roman blind on. Obviously the Velcro would be attached to the finished Roman blind, and then you would use these chains, which if I come over here, you'll see what I mean. One in motion. So yeah, you've got the chains, and they work very similar to a roller blind with the chains going up and down. So yeah, that is on a track system. The track systems I'm using today are Evans, and this is a standard track system. And then I've also got here one that I use for my classes. This is American Day super corded rail. So where I'm talking to you about the head rail allowance, that's basically the distance from where you pull up your blinds. I'm going to try and do this now. Oh, excuse my hand in the way. I'm just going to put that there for a minute on the, excuse me, with the camera, trying to get it in position. So it's the distance that when you pull this blind up, the distance from the top, you can see here, you've got the heading of the blind here, the top part of your blind, and the distance between there and there. So on this one, it's going to be, it's going to be 4 centimetres. And then on the Evans one, it's going to be, I'd say from there down to there is going to, I allow 5 centimetres. So this one is 5 centimetres. Can you see there? From there to there is 5. Again, if you're using a wooden batten, if you're doing these at home and you're using a wooden batten system, you would just measure the length of the batten down to where the hook eye would be that you're going to thread the cords through. So again, you know, that's basically what I mean by the headrail allowance. So you need to minus that headrail allowance off your calculation before working out where your spaces are going to be. I hope you're keeping up and you understand what I'm saying. Please feel free to email me or just message underneath and I can sort of try and make this a little bit clearer. So anyway, so as you can see on my calculations here, I've put the headrail allowance and I've decided that I need to have 4.5 spaces. So I've taken up here, this is the finished blind length. I've taken the headrail allowance off, which gives me 120.5. I've then worked out that I need 4.5 spaces, which is going to be 4 rod pockets, which I've worked out from the guide down here. So I've done 120.5 divided by 4.5, which gives me 26.7 full spaces. I'm then going to need a little half space at the bottom, which then allows the blind, can you see here, and this one I've made up, she says, if I can get it to come apart. I've got a little half space, so I've got a full space here and then I've got a half space at the bottom. So the distance between the bottom of the blind here and the first rod pocket is half the distance of this full space here. Okay, so what I then need to do is divide that number by 2, which gives me my half space. So I've got the distance from the top of the finished blind down to the bottom will be 125.5. I've been minus the 5 centimetres for my headrail because I'm going to be using one of these track systems. And then I've got a full space, 26.7, 26.7, 26.7, 26.7, and then I've got my half space at the bottom. You're probably wondering what these little lines are here. These little lines will just represent my 4 centimetre rod pockets, but you don't have to add that to when you're making up the rod. You'll have to add that later on, but not when you're working out the calculations initially. So to work out how much lining fabric to cut, I've done another little thing here, which is basically saying the finished length of my blind is 125.5. I'm adding on now the pockets. So my pockets, I've told you I need 4 pockets, all of which are 4 centimetres. So I'm timesing 4 by 4, which gives me 60, and then I'm just adding those two together, which equals 141.5. I don't need to add on any bottom seam allowance or top seam allowance because I just don't add that on. I just, you'll see why in a bit later, but I don't add any on, which other people do. So yeah, my cut length for my lining fabric is going to be 141.5 centimetres. And the finished width, I always do exactly the same width of my cut lining to exactly the finished width of my main fabric. So like I say, in this case, the finished blind width is 103. So my lining is going to be 103 centimetres. I really hope that hasn't been too complicated for you. I'm going to leave that on the screen, so feel free to take a screenshot of that or just pause it and take some measurements yourself. There's a little example down here of if it was a 3-fold. So you've got your headrail 1, 2, 3, and then half at the bottom, and it would just be the same going up or going down. I mean, you can go down to 50 centimetres and up to 50 centimetres. I guess you could do 2.5 folds if it was just a little blind. This is just a guide. It's not, you know, it's not set in stone. It's just a guide as to what I do when I'm teaching the ladies on my class.